Welcome to Level Up Tribes. Level Up Tribes provides resources to help you attain the necessary resources to level up your mind, body, and soul and realize your full potential. It is about exploring, learning, providing you with the tools from the experts for you to create a better version of yourself. I am your host, Agnes Goodwine, and welcome, Tribes. Welcome, Tribes. Today we have a special guest, Thomas Keller. He is the author of The Mirror, 3 Easy Steps to Free Yourself from Fear, Anger, and Anxiety, and that's just the beginning. When I reached out to Thomas, it was to discuss his beautiful art, sculptures, and paintings, and it was through our communication that I learned about his latest book, The Mirror, and so I was excited to learn that he was not only just a sculptor and an artist, he's also an author. We also learned through our communication that we had a few things in common and how our lives had once crossed paths, and I can't wait until you hear that story. The Mirror was insightful in so many ways. Thomas is transparent about his journey to finding purpose, self-discovery, to heal and release the things that no longer served him. It is an amazing book that will inspire you, transform you. I can't wait until you meet this amazing human who has a lot to give to each and every one of us. Let's dive in. Hi, how are you, Thomas?
I am great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I love the background. What is that?
Is that awesome? I'm sitting in the Northern Lights. It's actually a trippy virtual back screen I found on Zoom itself.
Really?
So you can do that whenever you want. And as soon as I figure out how I did this, I
Yeah,
will send you the information to do it.
please do.
Yeah, absolutely. You
I,
have four or five choices of different environments you can sit in.
I need to step up my game.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Oh, I'm so happy that we connected,
I am too. It's amazing how small this world can be at times.
isn't it? Well, welcome
Yeah.
to Level Up Twice podcast. How is the weather in Florida?
Windy today, humid. I guess there's some storms blowing through, but I think it's 75 degrees, something like that. I want to tell you something.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I read your article that you posted recently, and to tell you how small of a world it is, I lived in East Point, College Park, Georgia, with my family for years before moving here to Florida.
Are you kidding me?
I kid you not. Some of my best friends still live there.
Oh my God. I lived there for 16 years.
I know. Well, I didn't know how long, but I read that. I thought that is just amazing how we've been
Crossing paths.
crossing paths and then now we meet.
Oh, isn't the universe wonderful?
It is. Absolutely is.
Oh my God. I'm so excited because I didn't know where to start because you are just full of the wonderful gifts
Yeah.
from being an artist, a sculptor, now your book. So I kind of want to start with your art. But
Sure.
before we talk about your art, I want to talk about your story, meaning, where you're from. Now that I found out that you lived in East Point, that's totally awesome. Oh my. So let's start there. Let's start with your story before we get into how the art came into your life.
Okay. That's great because my story and my art align perfectly in this. My art was coming through when I was a young kid in elementary school. The art instructor had a conference with my parents trying to put me in advanced classes. I don't know, 8 years old, something like that. And then when I was around 10 years old, my family, we discovered I was colorblind, a very common colorblind, the red greens, which is very common in men. And I grew up in a very competitive family with two older brothers. And so between the teasing and the frustration and then not trusting what I thought I was seeing, I shut it all down at 10 years old. I shut all the artwork down, and then I didn't pick it up until I was 45 years old.
Wow.
I was living in Venice, California, and I had the urge just to draw something one afternoon. I had not drawn in the longest time. I can't even remember. And a little sketch came out, and it was just the beginning of it was like the drip in a dam starting through. And then that crack opened up and all this creativity started flooding through, and it was perfectly aligned with a spiritual awakening that I was having at the same time. and did not even align the two at that point. But I also began taking a spiritual class at this church called Agape, a metaphysical church. And my first project was these 3 pieces of art, which I had never created before. And that just snowballed into the art getting better and better. And each spiritual teacher introducing me to the next, and it's been full on since then.
Well, explain your art style and how did you come to find your style? Because I know you do a little bit of kind of everything.
Kind of everything. My art style originally was pastel paintings, working in pastels,
Mhm.
and I love the colors, the brightness of the colors of it. So it was very colorful, brilliant art. And then I switched when we moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta, Georgia. I flipped to sculpting. Because there's all these beautiful woods around Atlanta, and I started sculpting this dead wood, and that artwork came out to be a very what I call a feminine figurative style.
Yeah.
It's because our wood to me is so feminine in nature, and the beautiful curves and the grain and just the colors and the beauty of it and the strength of it. So I started harvesting my own wood from dead and fallen trees in the area on hikes I would take. And I always had a very fine art bent to the style of sculpting I was doing, because a lot of wood sculptors work in chainsaws, which I do, but they do other traditional wood sculpting. But I love the fine art and the feminine figurative. And so I think the first piece was bought by a friend, and then it was just on from there in galleries. And I just have become infatuated with wood sculpting, and now I've gone back to doing some pastels when I'm tired of looking at the brown and want some more bright colors. And I kind of go back and forth and mix them up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I noticed that with the wood sculpt, it was all female.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, thank you for explaining that, because that was going to be one of the things I was going to ask you about. Is like, oh, everything is so feminine. I wonder where
Yeah.
that's coming from.
That's all in the nature of the medium. To me, I didn't go to art school. I'm all what they call self-taught, which means I just experimented. I followed my heart. The pastels were just a medium that was on my heart. The wood sculpting is just my intuition to start working in that medium. So the only reason they're all basically feminine figurative is that's just what I see in that particular medium, the medium of wood.
Okay. You know, my dad used to do wood sculpture. And so
Oh,
when I saw yours and whenever I see it, I'm like, oh, I think of my dad for some
wow.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was really good actually.
Was he?
I didn't get that gift.
Right. Did he have a particular style?
He did the ones that I remember, he would do like turtles on the wood, nature kind of feel.
Hmm.
That's what he
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful because artists, I was listening to your interview with Hendrix, the
Mhm.
artist, and just the way we talk about whatever medium we're working in, that's how 2 different artists can produce in the same medium 2 completely different venues or styles of art.
Yes.
Your dad saw what he saw in it. I see what I see in it. It's beautiful because it reveals our inside, our individual inside of us.
Absolutely. That's why I love art so much.
Ah,
I do. I love art.
that's
Creativity.
fantastic.
Yeah, the creativity and like your storytelling through your art.
Yes, yes. I had not looked at it with that phrase, storytelling, but it is, I suppose. It's the insides coming out into the physical world,
Yes.
and that's another big balancing act in my journey as an artist, is balancing from producing to make money as an artist and really being in tune with what I'm inspired to create internally. So it's taken me a while to strike that balance and to stop pushing myself as an artist to create products that I'm not really inspired to create.
Well, what does inspires you?
What does inspire me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Ancient cultures inspire me. The Mayans, the Incas, the Egyptians. I've traveled the whole world, visiting these different sites, doing meditations and stuff. That's a huge influence on me. And then just the beauty of nature. Whenever I go out in nature, I feel like I'm going to church because that just feeds my soul. And the thing I really love about being in nature for me is I don't have to go out there and meditate, chant, or do anything. I can feel like it's working on me just by being there. And I love that about nature.
It's beautiful. So, what excites you the most about doing what you do as it pertains to your art?
What excites me the most now at this stage in my art career is I feel like I'm really patient enough to wait for true inspiration inside of me. And I love that. I'm not trying to make something happen anymore. I am just listening, waiting, and inspiration can hit me at any time, at the weirdest time, in by myself or in a crowd of people, and I'll just see an angle of something, and I'll be able to see a piece of artwork in it, or I'll see a flash of colors, in the environment, and I'll see a painting or something that I can do from that. And sometimes I take a quick picture of it on my cell phone, so for a reference point. But the most exciting part for me now is, and the second part to this is a very exciting part for me, is not knowing what medium I'm going to create in next or what I'm going to create next. So it's not just that I have to create in paintings or sculptures anymore. I've become fluid enough that where I can move from medium to medium and feel confident in that.
How's the art community in Florida?
The art community in Southwest Florida is huge. There are artists from all over the world down here selling, because we have such a big influx of the winter people. And this is their second homes down here. So there's a lot of people coming down with extra money and money to spend on art. So we have international artists, we have world-class artists, and we have a second tier, what I call a second tier of local artists in the artist community that have our own studios and stuff. And then we have people just moving down here who are artists as well. So there's a lot of art going on on different levels.
You do events?
Yes, I do events. I've met some of my greatest friends down here by doing events, putting sculptures out. Sometimes we have events on the streets on something called Fifth Avenue, and sometimes, they'll have the tent type events. And so I do some of those, but that was a stretch for my personality to hang in there and be pleasant all day long. I'm probably not the best natural salesperson in the world, but I'm not going to limit myself either in that way.
Why is that? You've been in sales all your life, right? You were a general contractor, right?
Well, that's true. I never looked at it in that way until you just said that. I have been selling myself my whole life as a general contractor. Now you're making me think. That's just rewiring the whole way I've looked at myself.
We'll table that one.
Okay, that's great. I like that. Thank you.
Is there anything you're experimenting with as it relates to your artwork?
Yes, I am creating my first piece of performance art based on a series of paintings I created a good while ago, and they just sat. Most of my art is inspired just by beauty, pure beauty. I want to create something beautiful that when somebody looks at it, they'll be just inspired by the sheer beauty of it. It's not so much message-based art, but one series of paintings I created maybe 10, 15 years ago has a very distinct message in it. I think there's like 9 to 13 paintings in this series. And I'm creating my first piece of performance art right now out of the first one in that series of painting. And he's an old man with a lot of cracks on his face. And I think the series is called Ancient Wisdom Faces. So there's these older people with these beautiful lines on their face, and they look, 100 years old or more. But the underlying message in this series is, please don't get caught up in looking at your physical or another's physical body, because that's not what we really are. There's a spiritual essence inside each one of us, and that's what this series is revealing.
That's awesome.
So I'm taking this painting and I'm creating a monologue that I'll create a video in, where it moves from the painting to me speaking in real time. And I'm making myself up to look as close to this old man as I can possibly look. I kid you not. This is a great adventure. And I should have the first test run of the video within this month.
Are you going to put it on your YouTube page?
I will. I most definitely will.
There was something else interesting that I saw about your artwork that you were working on, was like these mini homes.
Oh, yes, that was a commission. That's actually a real mailbox that gets letters delivered to daily. This woman had the idea. She bought a piece of land out here in Southwest Florida, and she knew she couldn't build her home there for a couple of years for whatever reason. But she had her mailbox location, and she had an idea of how she wanted her home to look. So she said to me, create this vision of my home in miniature, put it on a mailbox, and this will hold the energy for it for the next year or two until it gets built. It was awesome. I've never done anything like that before, but I built it from the ground up. You know, the concrete pad, the column, and the house on top of that.
How long did it take you to build?
Yeah, probably the better part of a month, you know, starting and stopping. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty fast.
I guess so. I have no idea about the time frame on these projects because a lot of them are the first time I've ever done this projects.
Where do you keep them? Do you have like a partnership with a gallery where people can go and purchase them?
I have a studio down here in Southwest Florida, and then I have a couple of galleries in Atlanta that still sell them. And so, and of course, I have my website gallery
Okay.
that people can get all the information back and forth from everywhere.
And as well as your commission work, if anyone has something in mind that you can do for them, they can reach out to you. Right?
Say that once again.
So you also do commission work. So if someone has
Yes.
an idea for their home or a special project, they can reach out to you as well.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of my work is commission work, and they'll come to me with projects that they have in their mind, and you know, I'll manifest that for them.
Is there anything else you would like to announce or say in regards to your art before we move into the mirror?
The mirror. About my art, yeah, if anybody, I'd like to just say my journey as an artist has been my journey, my spiritual journey. And so, if other people want to be artists or have that inclination to become an artist, the only recommendation I could ever make is just to follow your heart as best possible. It's the same recommendation I make to my 14-year-old daughter whom we homeschool, is follow your heart and do what that directs you to do as best possible. Sometimes it's not easy to hear or to get a sense of our heart, but then try many things and see what sticks to you. And just the intuition, the inward journey is really a reflection of our outward journey.
Thank you. With that being said, let's move on to, I have to tell you, when I reached out to you, full transparency here, it was all about your artwork. Everything was about your art. But when I found out about the book, I'm like, wait a minute, this is a jewel. I didn't know about the book.
Yeah. Well, that was the book, The Mirror, which is entitled The Mirror, was my most recent artistic or creative project. And when I completed that and got the system set up for that, now I'm moving on to this performance art piece. But I look at the book, The Mirror, just as I do my sculptures and my paintings. It was purely begun as an inspiration inside of me to write. And I've had 1, 2, 3 little things I've written before, short stories or a paragraph, but nothing extensive. And then this inspiration hit me. And so I thought I knew what it was going to be. So I started writing this book I had in mind called The Mirror. And what happened was 2, 3 sessions of writing, this book said, we don't want to go this direction at all. We're taking a right turn. You're going to write about this. And so I did what I call free writing, which is just write. And this is what came out of it. It's all this core principle of a lot of Egyptian mysticism I learned. But it's not just that. It's a core principle that I had seen swirling around in my life, but never really paid close attention to until the last 15 years or so. And it's completely transformed my life.
Yes.
And my friend's life and my wife's life.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, the book is called The Mirror, 3 Easy Steps to Free Yourself from Fear, Anger, and Anxiety. And that's just the beginning. And so I'll make sure that I'll put a link on the episode notes for the book. It is absolutely amazing. So take us on that journey and you just mentioned a little bit about it, but just take us deeper into that journey in writing this book and the message that you're trying to give to the audience.
Yes. Well, in writing this book, as a new medium writing to me, I really discovered how incredible putting words together are and how different it is from a visual medium like painting or sculpting, because I'm communicating through words to people and trying to transfer the ideas through. So now I have a much deeper, much greater respect for writers than I ever imagined possible. And my wife, who is a writer, writing is her first creative talent, I would say, kept saying to me, keep rewriting. And so it became a marathon for me, because in my visuals art and sculpting and painting, there's not a lot of redoing. It comes out, or it works itself out in its own unique way. So I had to adjust my whole mindset to rewriting, rewriting, and rewriting. And then I could begin to see the value in that, the clarity that comes through by rewriting a book over and over again.
Yes.
So the message within the book is that, well, the underlying message is each one of us is totally empowered in our own lives. If we'll start to see the people in our lives as mirrors for our own consciousness, if we start to see the people closest to us in our lives as reflections of parts of our consciousness.
Yes.
And so we can go out and meditate and chant and, raise our vibration that way, being grateful, which is awesome, very powerful. But there can be, and often are, what I call blind spots within us, spots where we don't consciously know we're holding ourselves back. And what the book The Mirror will show us is that our people closest to us will show us our blind spots. And then it follows up with what to do with those to transform them, so we're not bound in repeating the same patterns over and over and over.
Yes. Or attract the same personality types to your life, you know?
Yes, yes, that's exactly it. In an odd sort of way, that's how much the universe loves us. It will send us the same person in a different body over and over and over. That'll disturb us. That'll show us something ugly about our own consciousness, that will reveal our blind spots to our own consciousness. But I used to run away from those people or stay away from them. But now I can take that information and I know how to use it to transform that energy inside of me that's attracting them to me. And that ends that pattern forever. Those people that pattern is dissolved, it's melted.
Oh my God, I took so many notes. I think I highlighted the entire book. I want to go back to the beginning of the book because you reference the golden rule and the law of correspondence.
Hmm.
Our outer world is nothing more than a reflection of our inner world, which is what you just said.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you touch on the law of correspondence a little bit for those that might not know what that means?
All right. These are The law of correspondence is one of what they call the universal laws. It goes all the way back to ancient early Egyptian times. Hermes Trismegistus, this gets into a lot of information, Egyptian information. But anyhow, he brought these 7 universal laws and shared them with humanity. And this book covers really 2 laws. The first universal law is the law of mentalism. And that states that our thoughts create in our life. Our thoughts create the world that we see and the people we attract to us. And the second universal law is the law of correspondence, which clearly states as above, so below, and as within, so without. So as within me appears in the physical world outside of me. And the beauty of the book, The Mirror, is there's a lot of beautiful things we attract into our lives, the people showing us the really wonderful qualities about ourselves. But there's also some things that disturb us that the mirror shows us about ourselves that are holding us back. And then we learn how to transform those things, the without, and then that frees up this life energy for us to really succeed or be happy or fulfilled or creative, and dissolves whatever was holding us back. Sometimes it feels like we're banging our head against a wall trying to move through something, when we can just dissolve the wall and walk right on.
Well, a lot of times, when we have a conflict with someone, and this is just my own experience, I'm like, what is wrong with them? What what is their issue? You know? And in the past couple of years, as I become more conscious and self-aware of my own actions, I look into me and I'm like, what did I cause to react that person to act like that?
Wow.
However, with this insight from the mirror, it also adds to what I've already been working on with myself to say, wait a minute, there's a pattern here of individuals coming into my life, and they all are upsetting me with the same thing. I need to look within myself because that's something that I need to work. It's not them, it's me, and sometimes we do have ego, and sometimes we tend to kind of push it back to the other person. But sometimes, a lot of time when we have conflict, look within yourself because you might be causing that.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, when I reach a level when we can start to see that in our own world, it just opens a door to full empowerment.
Yes.
We really begin, it's painful. I've been through many painful times, and but now I know I can move and keep on moving and get to the other side, and the reward is so much more than whatever was holding me back. And I couldn't agree with you more. The people that we know on a regular basis that disturb us the most will give us the most freedom on the other side of the transformation.
Yes.
Because I could not agree with you more. I'm attracting some, and it's subconscious, we're not aware, or unconscious, but I'm still attracting it. So it's a huge leap in consciousness when you move to that.
Something else that jumped out while I was reading your story, and you spoke about safety a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
Oh man, my life and safety. I grew up in the Midwest. I had a great family, very competitive and a lot of fear and stuff. But I had the full range of family, very loving as well. And we were just doing what we could do. And the underlying message was always about safety. My dad wanted us to go to college, get degrees in finance or business type degrees, for safety, get a good money, get a good job, make a lot of money over time, build up the funds, and have the money to retire in safety. And well, the other underlying theme is get yourself a spouse, because then that's safety. You're hooked up, you're married or stuff. And I was with that program for decades and stuff. And then as I started to evolve, I started to see that what was being taught to me about safety was not really safe at all. It was becoming a tiny box that I was living in. And there was no way out. If I kept going down that road, I would be in prison, not in safety. And I realized that the safety that I was looking for was a safety I can find within myself. I mean, seriously, this is not just words I'm saying, because we create our own environment. We manifest whatever we're manifesting because of what's inside of us, not by what we're doing in the world. And it can be a hard message to hear for people, or they can just shut down because they don't want to hear it, because that whole safety message has been taught to us for so long and entrenched so deeply in our consciousness that it can be a bit of work to get out of that trap. But, we'll look at marriages and stuff. 50% of them didn't last just a short time ago, ended in divorce. So there was really no safety in marriages. And how many times on the news do we hear about companies' IRAs or retirement funds being misused or abused, and then people, or financial fraud, people giving their bit of retirement to these investors and losing everything. So there was no safety in that either.
Wow.
So it just 180 degrees turnaround in my consciousness about what safety really is. And now safety for me is freedom. It's freedom to live wherever I want to live, to travel, not just by myself. I have a family. Everybody works it out together. To live where we want to live, to travel where we want to live in the style we want to live. It's a freedom to do that. And I tell a lot of stories in my book, The Mirror, and they're all real stories. And one of my stories is about how I busted loose, broke free of the whole mindset about budgeting money that I'd been carrying my entire life. And once that fell apart, we have more money flowing into our world than ever before. And I am so free in my mind because I don't have to think, can we afford this? How much can we spend this week? What's the budget for the next month? It was just an ongoing jail in my mind of budgeting.
Thomas, can you elaborate a little bit more in regards to the money mindset?
The money mindset. Yes, I can, and it's not what people are going to expect to hear. It's not a wealth consciousness. It's not about getting more. The money mindset is about, for me, it's about freeing myself from thinking about money and budgeting and making money, and thinking only about, or thinking about inspiration, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter the language you use. But when our minds are on money, as in budgeting, it's very limiting in our vibration and our consciousness. And we can't move above that. But if we take our mind off of money, my budgeting, if we take our minds off of that and put it on a higher vibrational thing, such as your spirit or your God or whatever you believe in, money gets left behind, but you have more money flowing through your life than ever before. It's a matter of moving your attention to a higher vibration.
I love that.
And it can be hard to believe because we live in the United States of America, the money world.
Well, you left me speechless, and that doesn't really happen often.
Well, thank you.
The book, another thing that stood out to me was that your mom mentioned that you came out of her womb looking for God.
Yeah, that's a trip. Huh?
Explain that. Explain that.
Well, like I said, I grew up in small town Western Kentucky, and I don't know when I remember that, but my mom said I would always go from church to church. I was always like looking and searching, and she said when I was older and we looked back on my life, you came out of my womb looking for God or spirit, because I think even back then I would go to these Easter services out in the nature and the forest and stuff, and just was continually searching. So my journey has not been about money or that kind. My journey has always been a spiritual journey. And the art is a result of that. The book is a result of that. This performance art is a result. My marriage, let me drop this one on you. I don't know if this is in my book. It is. I was a loner for so many years. The first 50 years of my life, I was a loner. And I have some relationships, but they wouldn't last long. They'd fall apart and stuff. And when I really started my transformation and my focus on spirit, I met the most amazing woman. And we've been married for 15 years now and have a beautiful 14-year-old daughter as a direct result of my transformation from the inside out. This is who I am now, and it's fantastic. It's a dream I never had been aware of. Actually, I was aware of it, but I was so frustrated. I was like conflicted inside, and that was what was producing these short-term relationships.
Yes. And that's what I love about the story, because when you read about it and I see you and I talk to you, you can see and hear the transformation within. You were this person that was always looking for that thing, and you took this journey from the Midwest to California, and you travel the world to Peru and Egypt and Mexico, but you were finding little golden nuggets throughout your journey that has evolved, Thomas, and you're still growing. We never stop, really. But some people get stuck, and it goes back to that safety. They're in the safety net. They don't want to grow. They don't want to learn, and they're holding themselves back. But you took that leap of faith to say, there's more. There's more out there. There's more in me. I have questions. I'm going to look for the answers. And I think you've done that.
Yes, and I do continue to do that as well. I agree with you completely. We live in Southwest Florida, and there's a large population of older people with a lot of money down here. And the underlying energy is safety, though. They want to preserve their money, preserve what health they have, but they feel like they're going on a downhill road. And I think that contrast of moving down here and then seeing that contrast it doesn't have the creative energy, the spiritual energy that Atlanta did or Los Angeles did for me personally. And seeing this contrast really spurred me out of that safety mindset vibration and motivated me to become even more open to however spirit wants to use me.
Yes. And who were your mentors along your journey?
Oh my gosh, I've had quite a few mentors, and as I say in my book dedication, most of them have been women, and I've had a wonderful couple of spiritual teachers, a woman who now lives in Bakersfield and another one who lives in Las Vegas, and Dr. Carolyn Fuqua, Fuqua, was really had a huge impact on my life. She goes by the name Isis, Isis, and she teaches A Course in Miracles and combined with Egyptian mysticism that is just very, very profound and very rigorous. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's a it's a serious journey. And now that I look back on it, almost everybody can become a mentor in a way, because even the people that show you the worst of myself, the worst of ourselves, they're giving us a huge gift, because they're revealing to us what we had not wanted to see within ourselves.
Yes.
As painful as that can be in the beginning, it completely changes our own lives as we use that information instead of running away from it.
What was the most surprising thing you discovered while writing The Mirror? Was there anything that popped up during the writing process that you were like, I wasn't aware of that?
Well, two things. One surprising thing was the book took on a life of its own and changed courses on me. But I'm familiar with that process in myself as a visual artist. I have sculptures that have done that and paintings that have done that. So that was a surprise, but that wasn't totally caught off guard. The other one was just how, not hard, but how challenging writing can be, to communicate through words effectively, clearly, and concisely, and to see that the information I'm trying to say is how they're interpreting that. That was really, and still is, quite an adventure, because it challenges myself to maybe think the way they're thinking, or some people that have given me feedback on the book, The Mirror, say, I loved everything except for this one thing. It really put me off. And at first I become defensive about it and say to myself, well, they're just dumb or whatever. And then after a few days, I think, well, they got what they got. Maybe I could have communicated or written it differently to get to them. So I found that kind of to be a challenge and an adventure.
Yes.
And now I have a love for writing and reading that I never had before.
I don't want to give too much away, because especially the process on how to release the blockage,
Yeah.
because I think people really need to get this book and read it. And then at the end, that's when you spill it all out. To say, how to practice it. And so I don't want to give that away, because I think it would be unfair to the book and to you. But when I was reading the book, I found myself Googling like the universal laws. I kept
Yeah.
all these other things were just popping out. And I hope I don't say this word wrong. Is it a Hawaiian practice?
No, well, yes, it used to be an ancient Hawaiian practice. It's a forgiveness process
Yes.
called Ho'oponopono.
Yes. I never ever heard of that.
Okay. It was made somewhat popular by Dr. Hugh Lin, who lived in Hawaii, and he knew this process, and he took it with him into a psychiatric ward that he became the director of, and was able to transform the entire ward by this Ho'oponopono process, by never seeing a patient in person, and form the entire place. But it even goes back farther than that. He learned it culturally. It was an ancient Hawaiian practice. And it's one technique or process for forgiveness and transformation. And I describe it in my book because it's been very powerful for me. And I want to make clear that I agree with you in not revealing too much about the book for a different reason, because when you read the book, you get all the nuances that you've gotten. You get the background information, so you don't jump to, well, he just said the word forgiveness. I know what that means, but you don't know what that means and how I'm describing it. And so Hugh Lin's popular Ho'oponopono process has been very powerful for myself, my wife, and some people I know, amongst other forgiveness processes. And that's why I like to describe that particular one.
I mean, I love the book. Congratulations on it.
Thank you. Well, I love what you're doing for your community, and not so small community now, because you are sharing on your podcast different energy workers, artists, different people who can lift the vibration of whatever environment they're in. And that is incredibly powerful to me.
That's my goal.
And I think it's working.
Thank you so much. So what is next for you?
What's next? I have no idea. And that's a beautiful thing, because I'm not planning out ahead of myself. Waiting for inspiration, this piece of performance art, and then let's see what happens next. maybe someone will come into my life and it'll take another course. I'm not no longer setting goals and predetermining where I think I want to go, because I got a feeling whatever this thing called spirit is
Yes.
has a whole different road that I can travel. And if I just take my hands off the steering wheel, it may be sweeter than I could ever have imagined.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. I'm a planner, things in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes it stresses me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea sometimes to let things just go.
Well, yes, and I'm. There's nothing wrong with planning in my mind, as long as we leave a little space for spirit to move within us.
Hmm.
So, I thought I had an idea what my book, The Mirror, was originally going to be, but I left a little room for spirit, and it just took and ran off with it on its own. All the goals in the world can be fantastic if we don't lock out the voice of our spirit, our God, our heritage, whatever you want to call it, within us.
Well said. Are you coming to Arizona?
Could very well be. As you well now know, my best friend lives in Phoenix.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, we almost crossed paths in East Point, Georgia. We may very well cross paths in Phoenix. And this is how trippy it is for your audience. I liked Agnes so much. I sent her an email saying that, or she invited me out to Phoenix. I said, I may be coming out there. My best friend lives in Phoenix. This is his name. Contact him. And she sent me back an email say, I already know this man. We hiked together. How trippy is that?
I was. So yeah, it's meant for us to meet.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you would like to add or discuss that perhaps we didn't touch on today?
I don't think so. I'm happy to talk on, but I just see what comes up as we talk. But I don't feel any impulse to speak anything.
I did.
Go ahead.
How was that trip when you went to Mexico, Egypt?
Oh, yeah.
So important for people to step out of their own word, Thomas.
Ox.
Yeah. You know,
It, the first thing that comes to mind about traveling to Peru and Mexico and Egypt and Kenya is that culturally it's not anything like I thought it was. And it's certainly not anything like I saw on the American media or heard about them.
okay.
I mean, the people in Egypt, the people we saw, the people I encountered were so loving and friendly and happy and beautiful parents. And the men would comb their daughters' hairs. It was just like the men were very involved with that kind of thing and very hands-on. And they were very friendly and loving to us, and it was awesome. And then I went to Peru and Mexico. It's the same thing. The people were generally, of course, these are generally very peaceful and grounded and happy, whether they lived in a mansion or a shack without electricity or plumbing.
Okay.
There was a peacefulness about them that often gets lost in the United States, I think. And so that was the biggest thing about traveling internationally is we see these worlds for ourselves. We see that the media is not really showing us enough to get a big picture of what's going on out there. And almost all of these people are just like us, doing the best that we can, creating families, whatever it is. And they just are, and they can all be fantastic.
Is with your daughter and your experience with everything that you have gone through in your life, how has that spilled over to you as a parent? Is she artful? Did she get the artistic talent from you?
She's very artful. I used to set up a painting space for her in the studio in Atlanta when she was 2, 3, 4 years old. And then I would never try to teach her how to do it. I just let her go and be self-taught. And if she asked me a question, I would tell her all the information I knew about it. But I wanted her to start at the earliest age, discovering herself from the inside out.
Yes,
And yeah, so she's very artistic, but she has her own unique style. She loves manga and the Japanese illustration art and anime, I think it's called. And my wife's a writer. My daughter has great writing skills and loves, we homeschool, so she takes some online writing classes and stuff. And she's very much it was my wife and I's agreement to help her be self-determining as much as possible from day one. And so she decides for herself internally. So now that she's 14 years old, I have little influence over telling her what to do, but still, she's a real sweet person and can decide and does decide for herself. So she's sweet and strong in that way.
And the reason I asked that question, I'm not sure why it popped up in my head, but maybe because we're talking about our transformation along our journey. I'm a whole different person than I was 5 years ago. And so that as a parent, I was a young parent. And so I know that if I had a child at this moment, my parenting skills and what I show this child at this moment in my life from what I know and what kind of person I am inside, it would be a totally different parenting style than years ago. But that goes with us knowing ourselves and learning. You were looking all your life for something. And if you would have had a child, what kind of parent would you have been at that time versus when you did have that child at the perfect time?
I know what you mean. I love what you're saying. And I believe that my daughter was so smart that she didn't even come into our lives until I was 50 years old. Because she's probably out there in the spiritual world saying, I am not coming close to that man now. Got a lot of work to do. I'm not going anywhere near him. And my wife was 42 when she had our daughter, our only child. And so what I believe is a bigger picture, our children come to us at the time they come to us in our own development because they match our consciousness at that moment. And so I had to grow until my daughter was ready at 50 years old. But even if we look back on it, your younger children, you were the person then that they needed to have.
Oh.
And, even any regret I feel, I even at 50, I'm much different than I am now at 64, and my daughter is 14 years old. And I was harsh to my daughter at times. And every once in a while, I'll still get injured regret when I look back on what I did. And I have to remind myself that she came in at the right time, and I had to be just exactly the way I was at that moment. And now we continue to grow and evolve and stuff. So that's just my feelings on that.
Thomas, full of knowledge.
Thank you. I look forward to coming out to Phoenix.
Well, it gets really hot in the summertime. That's not
I lived in Las Vegas 2 years in the late 90s and scorching.
Yeah, so the best time is like right now.
Yeah, wish I could. I mean, we may be out there in April, May, somewhere like that.
I'm looking forward to meeting you and meeting your wife. She sounds lovely. And yeah, I can't wait to how this relationship is going to develop.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah.
So what is the best way for our listeners to contact you to learn more about the book and your artwork?
Well, to learn more about the book, it's entitled The Mirror by Thomas Keller, and it's available at Amazon and also available at my website entitled themirrorworks.com. And that also has email addresses and phone numbers. And then my visual art is all at a website entitled thomaskellerart.com, and that has emails and stuff inside of that. So it's themirrorworks.com and thomaskellerart.com.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I look forward to, after I watched a couple of your episodes, I've gotten more and more excited about talking with you, and it's definitely meant to be.
Well, I hope I made you feel comfortable and welcome.
Definitely.
Well, let's stay connected, okay?
Yes, thank you again, and we will, and I want to give you some information about my wife. She might be very interesting to you as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, based on the very first podcast that you created, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting that woman's name, who does the energy work.
She is my spiritual teacher.
Awesome.
Yes, you have my cell number, right?
Yes, I do.
Anytime, I can speak to both of you guys if she wants to talk about Patricia. Right? Have you been to Phoenix?
No, if anything, just driving through.
Patricia Federico, she's located at the farm in South Mountain, and she has what she calls a casita, which is like a little house. And the farm has like 2 or 3 restaurants. There is an amazing. I know you like nature. If you're ever out here, go there for lunch or breakfast and just walk the property. It's amazing.
Oh, if I'm ever out there, we'll go together.
It is my favorite place in South Mountain area.
That sounds fantastic. Is that close to North Phoenix or past North Phoenix?
Not far. Is it maybe depending on traffic, maybe 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Not far at all.
Well, call me anytime. Have a wonderful weekend. It was amazing speaking with you. I knew it was going to be inspiring. And so, yeah, thank you so much, Thomas.
And thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at www.leveluptribes.com. And please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Catch you all next time, my beloved tribes.